Hey, welcome to our broadcasting of the Real Insights Live event, where we semi-monthly interview successful real estate agents, talk about market trends, and all things real estate. I am your host, Matt Green. It is May 31st, 2007, and today we will be discussing the real estate trends of St. George. In the next several weeks, we have really several good events lined up, including strategies to compete in multiple offers, how to win in multiple offers, certainly relevant in today's market. Coming soon listings, and when you cross the line from a legal perspective, how to leverage client appreciation events in the next several weeks. And if you have any suggestions on ideas or thoughts that you'd love to see us implement, or agents that you'd think would be great for us to interview, please send me a message or comment below. We'd love to consider that for future events. Make sure, if you haven't already, to like our Facebook page, facebook.com/KW Utah. And certainly would love to have you follow me and join in the conversation at facebook.com/Matt Green Utah. If you're enjoying the interview today, please be sure to show us your love by clicking on the link or the like buttons below. We love the hearts and the comments and the questions. And so we encourage your participation. Today, I've got some really great guests, two very special guests, Jeremy Larkin and Karen Anderson. Both from our St. George office, very talented agents in our Keller Williams St. George office, and excited to have them join me. Jeremy, Karen, welcome to the show. Thanks for joining me.
Thanks for having us.
I thought it would be fun to just get your guys' initial perspective relative to what you think is compelling about the St. George real estate market. Like, why are buyers interested in moving? Right now, the county is the fourth fastest growing county, third or fourth fastest growing county in the state of an already very fast growing state. And I thought it'd be interesting to get both of your perspectives, seeing as Karen, you in the last handful of years elected to move from Texas to St. George.
Right.
And Jeremy, of course, you've grown up your entire life, born and bred in St. George.
I visited Texas once. Does that count?
You know where it's at?
I've actually visited like 7 times. Just so you know.
All right. People are probably still in shock that you've shaved your head between now.
Yeah, I hope a couple of things. I should open up by saying I have the name Larkin Group on the screen. So that's cool. I'm illegally changing my name from Jeremy Larkin to Larkin Group. And then I hope you guys all saw I call it the 1968 high school principal photo is the best way I can describe that. So
it made you look very knowledgeable, that's for sure.
Well, what's awesome is I sent that to Matt as a joke, and then he put it in the marketing. So, bad, Matt.
Be careful what you send me.
Yeah, I really think, though, a little mustache would have been really the perfect topping.
That's awesome. All right, Karen, so let's start with you. What was compelling about St. George, and what do you think, as someone coming from outside the state and buying in St. George, and as you've talked with other buyers, what is it that's compelling about the St. George real estate market?
Sure, Matt. Well, the fact is there's just St. George is a really special place. It's unique. It has unique landscaping. It has a completely different lifestyle. For example, I was in Texas, had a successful real estate business. I was driving down the road looking at water towers. That's all I could see when I looked like 100 feet up. And I thought, money's not a reason to be here. I love Texas, and I have a little Texas in my heart all the time. But I'm telling you, I moved to St. George. I have a little family here. I walk up 5 minutes. I'm on a walking trail looking over the Palisades and the Red Mountain. We're on mountain bikes on the weekend. We're going water skiing. It's 5 minutes away. Everything's 5 minutes away in St. George. That's the best thing ever. So we're talking about a lifestyle change, and we've loved it. I've been here 3 years. Love it.
It's pretty nice. Yeah, I've really enjoyed spending some time down there in the last handful of years. So, Jeremy, what, in your perspective, what's compelling about this community?
Well, first of all, I've asked you to bring your bike every single time, and you've never brought it. But let's keep our feud off the air for a minute. It's kind of interesting because I was born and raised here. Different perspective. My father, I'm going to put a date on him forever. Hey, there's Karen on her bike.
Is that you, Karen?
Yeah. So there you go.
I drove 5 minutes up the road, got to the top of Snow Canyon, jumped on our bikes, and we rode down, went and had breakfast, rode our bikes home.
Oh, yeah.
That's what I'm talking about.
No, This place is cool. And I have not been on my mountain bike since this morning. And since this morning, it wasn't since last night at 9 o'clock. And since then, it wasn't since Monday morning. So the thing with St. George is my father's 76 years old. He was born and raised here. And it's funny. He'll always say, I've been all over the world. He's lived all over the world. He lived in Spain for 3 years. And it's tough to find a place that's a better place to be. And it's interesting because you have your perspective based on where you're at, and we have people who say, I had someone this week say, I got to get out of here. I need to be in a city. And hey, I appreciate that. Right. But what Karen's talking about, if I were to take this webcam and turn it sideways, I'm looking at the downtown, the historic district. I'm looking at the Red Hill with the Dixie on there that everybody loves. And we have a town where literally world-class golf, world-class biking, world-class skiing is not far away. Brian Head's pretty good. It's an hour and 20 minutes away. Wasatch Front. Las Vegas is 90 minutes away. I think a lot of people in Washington County say, I'd love to visit Vegas. I would never live there. But what we have here is in the last probably decade, maybe a little longer, our local kind of city government said, we're going to have a park within a mile of every single home. And so you have this city that still feels small, right? But it's not small. And we have, all the big box retailers, but it's still a place that's safe to live. And for me, obviously I'm in a service sales industry. We can live here, right? Now, if you want to come in here and run a manufacturing plant, maybe this isn't the place for you, right? But again, there's a lot of places you could live. There's a huge draw. And for us, I say, man, the only other place I'd want to live is Heber City, like basically the cold version of St. George.
Yeah.
In my mind, I don't know where else I would go.
Yeah. Yeah. So it really is a special spot. And one of the things I don't think either of you mentioned is just the proximity to the national parks and Zion.
Yeah.
I mean, Springdale is just unbelievable. I saw a little video about it last night where I think the population's like 500 to 700 people. They have 4.5 million visitors every year.
Yeah.
And it's just such a...
Oh, yeah. It's crazy. As a matter of fact, the Tour of Utah, this professional cycling race, went through there last year, and the people in Springdale weren't sure they wanted it, because they're going, we have a lot of visitors. We're not sure we need that. But you're right. We missed that. Zion National Park, Bryce Canyon, Snow Canyon, Pine Valley. And the funny thing is, behind the Red Hill is Pine Valley, which is 10,500 feet.
Yeah.
So it's a pretty unique topographically, this place is.
Yeah. Yeah. Pretty special. So tell me, I sold and have sold property in Park City for years and years. And, it was also similar to St. George in that it was considered kind of a resort community where a lot of people along the Wasatch Front had a second home or some sort of investment property. And I think St. George has been perceived that way for a lot of years too. And we had, at that time, a pretty good sense of what percentage of the owners owned property in Park City that were actually primary residences was along the Wasatch Front. Do you have a sense for that? Where are your buyers coming from?
Right.
What percentage are vacation homeowners or second homeowners versus primary homes?
Well, and I'd love Karen's perspective. I got some data an hour ago from Southern Utah Title. And I mean, talk about waiting to the last minute. It's just with Memorial Day, they're showing us right now as 20.78% is non-primary in Washington County. And it's interesting because number 2 is Salt Lake City at 10%, right? Mm-hmm. And then Washington City, I would have given you the slide if we had it earlier, but 20.78% of our homes are owned by non-primary occupants. So second homeowners, investors, VRBO, whatever. Karen, what do you, that's more data versus what you see out there on the street talking to buyers.
Right. No, so like my opinion, I actually, what I'm seeing in my number of buyers that are looking, that's probably about right. About 30% of my buyers are looking for second homes. A lot of our second home buyers, though, are younger. That's what we're finding as a trend. And so people in Salt Lake, people in Denver area, people even in Arizona and Vegas and California that want to have a kind of a place to go to where it, again, brings a different type of lifestyle. And so they're coming down. Some people are using them as their primary residence or a secondary residence where they're coming to vacation. All their family comes together because it's centrally located. I mean, we're like 6 hours from LA, yep, and we're 5 hours from Salt Lake. And, Denver's just a half a day's, 3/4 of a day's drive. So, and then I've got investors that are coming in. So people who are bringing in cash or they're trying to take, trying to find opportunities where they can get a little more return on their investment. And This is a hot market right now for investment property.
Well, and I would throw in there, if I can, St. George is the Park City of the desert for Utah, Matt. And you see it, Matt, right? Isn't that how you see it?
Absolutely, yeah.
It's kind of like Park City, St. George, two different, demographically different, but they really are like the complementing kind of sister cities.
Yeah, I think the only other maybe community that plays in that same role is maybe Moab.
Yeah.
Moab's always been considered Park City's backyard neighbor of some sort. Well, I think a lot of people, agents, buyers, are wondering, are we facing another real estate bubble? And I think there's some pretty compelling data that you guys have put together here that helps us really have a better understanding of what the reality is relative to the likelihood of us seeing a similar bubble to what we saw in 05, 06, 07. So maybe Jeremy, you can lead us through this a little bit, and I'll click through the slides as
please do. And credit is right there on the screen. Leisha Langston, who's the senior economist for Utah Department of Workforce Services. She produced this. This came out of our What's Up Down South Economic Summit. One of the things that I would share with you that she shared with us is Washington County right now. You look at this, what we call non-farm jobs, and they always describe, non-farm jobs as everything outside of the agricultural industry. But Washington County, you look at that, and Iron County, we are number one, the most jobs we've ever seen in Washington County, number one. And number two, look at that graph from 2009 to 2016, right? So massive job growth. Now, you click through this, Matt, and I don't know if it talks about, so the next slide, most jobs ever. So that graph's kind of hard to look at in a way because the little people they have on there, but weird, huh? So we're at 60, call it 3,000 jobs, the most jobs we've ever seen. So, as we ask this question and you click through these slides, it's like, is St. George in another bubble? Well, a couple of things would have to happen for us to have a bubble. Number one, real estate would have to be completely overvalued, astronomically overvalued. And number two, there would have to not be enough jobs to support the purchase of the real estate, right? So,
Jeremy, I mean, even if you look at this slide right here, it's pretty incredible. And I think Park City went through this, where they went through a number of booms and busts until they hit a mass, kind of a population mass. And it seems like maybe Washington County is accomplishing that as well now. I mean, they've really gone from 35,000 jobs in 2001, and then 15 years later, they're more than double that. Yeah, that's pretty incredible. And the amount of infrastructure that we're going to talk a little bit about today, and investment in that community, is just so significantly different from a jobs creation standpoint than it's ever been.
Yeah, and remember something that my father, earlier I talked about. He was born in the early 40s. He was a child in St. George, and in the 1960s, guys, I-15 didn't even come through until like 1968, I think. So you went over Utah Hill, and we didn't have air conditioning until 65. So, this town has changed since the 60s, right? So check this out. Non-farm jobs by industry. So Washington County, of course, as you look at all of the counties in the state, look who's number one.
Number one.
Okay. Number one job growth in St. George. So most industries showing moderate to strong to moderate job growth. Clicking through here, unemployment rates. So if you look at the bottom of that, it shows what is too low. Too low is, hey, I have a business, I can't even staff it. And we have that, by the way. I'm going to put a plug in while we're on the air. We're trying to find a really powerful additional administrator, right, for our business. And my administrative team is like, their heads are falling, hairs are falling out, and they're going to look like this soon, right? and you know what's funny? All the great people, guess what? They have a job.
Yeah.
They're not applying on Craigslist. So you look at what's too low. We're bordering on too low in Washington County. Okay. So anyway, keep cruising.
But still a healthy number, though. I mean, it's so low that it's healthy at this point.
Population growth is picking up, and I'm looking through these same things, but still measures far below the boom years. So if you click through here, Matt, one thing I want to show folks, and it's probably you're there. Click to that next slide. So Washington County is the fourth fastest growing county. So we ask the question again. Are we having a bubble? As fast as we're growing, gang, as crazy as it seems, we're still only the fourth fastest growing county. Right. You know what I mean? Like, it's not that crazy what's happening in St. George. Now, Matt, there was a slide, and I don't know if you have it, and it's a building permit slide.
Yeah, we'll get to that one here.
Okay, I want to make sure that we talk about that, because that's huge. So keep clicking through here.
So the next slides are more kind of our market data that we put together as a real estate brokerage. And, you know, it's a little bit difficult to read, but this goes back to '06, the present. And the red is units under contract. So you can see number of units under contract back in '06, '07, under 500 at any given month. And currently we're in excess of that. And then the blue line indicates number of active listings, available active listings.
Correct.
And you can see, you know, we're at a low over at least the last 10 or 11 years, which, you know, in this case would suggest a lot of upward pressure on pricing.
Oh, yes.
Currently.
Yeah, like 30, I'm going to say 30 to 35% over the last, since 2010, 2011.
Yeah. That's
2011,
right.
Yeah, and maybe that. I mean, you came out of Texas, Karen. It probably looked the same way there.
Yeah, actually, we were not quite in the same position that Utah was in '09 and '08. You know, we didn't quite fall as far.
Yeah.
But it is interesting. A lot of the jobs that are coming here to Southern Utah, though, are number one is the construction industry, and number two is healthcare and education. Number three is retail sales. And so that's who we have coming in this market looking for property. And so it's really interesting. As far as like the way prices are shifting, the demand is there. I mean, every agent we talk to, we need listings. We're looking for more homes to sell. And we're walking those neighborhoods looking for homes for buyers that are trying to get in town and get a home.
Well, that's what's interesting about this slide is the inventory was just starting to race up right before that bubble, and we're just not seeing that. I mean, you can just see the inventory just starting to really climb back in '06, '07, '08, and we're just not seeing that inventory. And to Jeremy's point here in a minute with the building permits, I think it just shows that as well. So this is units sold by year. And you can see we finally just surpassed the number of units sold that we saw in 2005. Keep in mind, prices kept going up in '06 and '07. This is volume sold. So significantly have passed 2005 records in volume sold annually.
Yeah, which is amazing because the average price is actually lower than it was then still.
That's right. Yeah.
We're still not that high.
Yeah.
But again, I think that speaks, though, to who's coming in town looking for a house. So, you know, I think the average monthly income in Salt Lake is $3,600 per month. It's about $2,600, about $1,000 difference. So the demand for our like $200,000 homes is very, very high. I mean, you've got multiple offers all day long. Yeah.
Well, and let me throw a thought in here and this is what we help our clients understand all the time, is they go, oh my gosh, I heard the average sales price is so high in St. George. And we say, I always use this analogy of like an auto dealership. If I own a Honda dealership and I sell 30 units per month, and then I sell the Honda dealership and I buy a Mercedes dealership and I sell 30 units per month, my sales volume is going to be different, isn't it? Right? Because the average value of a Mercedes is so much higher than a Honda. So part of what's affected our averages is where you're almost getting a misconstrued, a skewed view of values, is that we have a whole bunch of people coming to town now buying $375,000, $400,000, you know, Karen, the 4-bed, 3-bath, 3-car garage, 2,500 square foot slab on grade. That's the home that the second homeowners are all buying, right? Yeah. It's almost every single time it's that same home. Well, when you have a whole influx of people that come to town and start buying $400,000 homes, it skews the average, right? And so then you go, man, values are so high, but they're not quite as high as we think they are, is what I'm saying. I hope that makes sense what I'm getting at.
I think that makes a lot of sense. And I think, you know, the data supports that even when we look at the annual median home sales price. So this is, you know, back from '05 data to present again. You can see we really topped out on the median home price in St. George, kind of in '07, maybe early '08, but mostly in '07. And then we haven't reached that point yet again. And if you kind of just draw a line between '05 and present, you know, I think that's kind of a nice annualized 3 to 4% year-over-year appreciation rate, which is really kind of a healthy appreciation rate over a 10 or 12-year period, right?
Yeah. There's nothing abnormal about it.
So, Jeremy, to your point, earlier you talked about the rate of appreciation over the last 5 years, and we really saw a lot of people jump back into the market at the end of 2012, 2013, where we saw year-over-year appreciation rate, approach 20%. But for the last several years, again, a very healthy number, kind of between 6 and 8% year-over-year, which seems like a really sustainable number to me. Yeah,
and incomes. Some of the information that came from Leisha Langston at the Workforce Services, she said incomes have been going up about 3% in St. George. So we have a lot of job growth, and we do have an increase in incomes. Now it's not in lockstep with appreciation of homes, which is exactly why homes can't economically, they can never appreciate forever, right? Because there's always going to be a limit to what. So this is interesting. Can I jump on this?
Yeah, jump on it.
Yeah.
So I love this slide. This is the one, everybody. This is the answer to whether we have a bubble. Okay, we talk about this on a radio program all the time. So if you look at 2005, gang, 3,860 building permits pulled in Washington County. Last year, 2016, which was a rocking year. Yeah. And Karen, how many times do you have people go, man, every time I go out and drive around, there's a new subdivision. Well, by the way, I have it happen. And I'm in real estate, right? Yet, only 2,100 pulled last year. Not even close to what was pulled in 2005. And the fundamental difference between what happened in 2005 and what's happened this last couple, 5 years is in 2005, you had people calling and saying, hey, I want to buy a house in St. George. I'm in California. What have you got? Well, I've got a 3-bed, 2-bath, whatever, Ramor for $275. I want it. Well, aren't you going to come up and see it? Nope. I'm just going to buy it. The difference is that now we have either owner occupants or second homeowners buying those homes. People from Salt Lake that say, I'm just going to go down and use it part of the year, right? Mm-hmm. So this slide, it's pretty telling. We're not at the bubble level. We're not even near that, even though the new construction appears to be crazy.
Yeah, interesting.
So not surprising. Look at construction employment is jacked up, but look at 2005, 6, and 7. So employment is still not to boom levels.
So builders are being a little more conservative. Investors are being a little smarter with relative to not flooding the market, it seems like.
Yeah.
I think one thing that we're seeing a lot too is there are a lot of building permits that are starting to be issued, or there are applications into the cities about changing the way that property is zoned to go to multifamily. So we have a huge demand right now for condos, for townhouses, things like that. So if you look out in Ivans, where our new school is, and I know we're going to talk about that soon, the medical school that's coming in. It's not just single detached dwellings anymore. We're talking about condos and townhouses and the demand for that.
Yeah, for sure. And, St. George, Washington County affordability is completely in line with the U.S.
Well, and what's amazing here too is you look, so the higher the graph, the closer we are to that 80 or 70% line, it means more affordable, right? So you look back in 2006 and only 40% of the homes that were available were considered affordable homes that people could actually get into. Crazy. And then in 2011, when we thought things were really just terrible and the market was very difficult, we reached an affordability level that was really attractive. Everything seemed affordable. But we haven't really fallen much off that. I mean, based on the things that you're talking about, which is the employment rate increasing, the availability of homes, prices haven't raced away from where they were a number of years ago, right? There's a lot of things that are just, interest rates remain low.
Yeah,
these things continue to keep things relatively very affordable.
Yeah, well, and you're in Salt Lake. I mean, if people want to know how crazy prices are going, right?
Yeah.
We're not seeing what you guys are seeing. I mean, it's if this market's hot, it's gone nuclear on the Wasatch Front, basically.
Yeah, for sure. So talk about this one a little bit, Jeremy. This is
non-residential building permit valuation. So this is kind of interesting, and I was trying to get into the bottom of what is the deal here, right? So but this is millions. It's kind of interesting. Look at 92. I graduated from high school in 93, by the way. Dixie Flyers.
I think it's important we point out, too, this is non-residential investment, right?
Yeah. This is like businesses, basically.
This is businesses, commercial.
So, and so what
hospital,
and here's what I would point out with this. So what happens is your your commercial always follows your residential, right? So you're going to have this big population spike, and then the commercial is going to come behind it. And so anytime you see a big influx of people into a city, a community, a county, there's going to be this deal that follows it. So look at your graph here, guys. Look at 2006. 2005 was the peak, right? So if you notice what happened in 2006, big influx of retail, commercial, non-residential, and then the same thing happens in 2016 because all these businesses say this place is viable and we have to serve all of the people who move there. But Matt, you were talking about the critical mass. I think the reason it's so nutty this time, this is the biggest spike we've seen in 24 years, right? Is because, because of the critical mass.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, like everybody wants a water park, and people always say we need a water park, and I always had to tell them we don't have enough people for a water park. But when you start to get this critical mass, these businesses come to town.
I think it's a telling sign when the residential construction in comparison to 2006, 2007 isn't nearly what it was. So there isn't the overbuilding in residential, but the commercial investors really see the base now and are investing heavily in the community. I think
Right.
Very awesome, very healthy. Well, we kind of talked about this, whether time was on our side. And again, just recognize Mrs. Langston for her efforts on that. So thank you.
Gosh, so good.
So Karen, you sent me a couple of these photos, which were really helpful.
Yeah.
Maybe talk through these a little bit with us. And this demonstrates some of the investment that's going on in that community.
Exactly. Yeah, that was a perfect segue to go into what we're looking at right now, because this is basically Dixie, a rendering of our new Dixie Regional Medical Center expansion. So we're talking $300 million and invested in just this expansion. It is absolutely going to double the square footage of what we currently have out of Dixie Regional Medical. It's all part of IHC. They're bringing in a women's and children's center that's going to have really cool, amazing services offered to women, birthing centers where you can bring your own, if you want to bring your own doula with you, you can have a beautiful room there and still be on the hospital in case there's an emergency. But
it's DIY, isn't it, right? Or DIY?
Doula?
Isn't it DIY?
Midwife, doula, right? Natural birth, that kind of thing. They're expanding their services. They're going to have a cancer center. They're teaming up with Stanford University and have 3 different labs for research for cancer. It is amazing. They're expanding their emergency center, which is actually the primary location where almost everyone enters in a hospital is through the emergency center. They're going to double that. So this expansion is going to be a huge not only investment in our community, but that's why we're seeing healthcare jobs coming available all the time. But because we service parts of Nevada, parts of Arizona, and all of southern Utah. And so
And I'll throw in there, Mayor Pike had said 150 new jobs, and that's great. Everything Karen shared is actually amazing detail. 150 new jobs, but 515,000 feet for Intermountain Healthcare. I mean, that's a big, and you have to realize that, St. George is clear down here, and then it's Cedar City, and there's not a lot there between here and northern Utah. So this is a hub. Life Flight, unfortunately, is in and out every day, and so it's busy.
And the new airport's awesome. It's my favorite airport anywhere.
Yeah.
All right. So tell us about this one, Karen. What's this property?
This is the actual, what we're looking at right now is actually the new Rocky Vista University. So this is a medical school that's coming into Ivins. And actually it's one of the reasons why Ivins has become a kind of a hot growth area in St. George, because we've got 125 students that are all start school in August in this new medical school. So it's actually out of Colorado, and like I said, 125 new students are going to start. Opens in July. It's going to be a beautiful investment. So if you want to invest, buy property in Ivins and let's get a medical student in there.
Yeah, they're going crazy, and the dean of the university said that. Last week when we had him on as a guest, that 80% of their faculty, like the real heavy hitting earners, they're building brand new or buying big old huge homes in Ivins out there. And then the students can't afford to live anywhere. So if you've got a $200,000 home that you can rent out, that's gold.
Or a big home with an apartment, things like that. Yeah, there's things. Yeah.
Interesting.
Okay.
So Dixie State, it seems like they're doing a pretty major renovation or reinvestments.
Yeah, so Dixie just built a huge new more student housing right off of, I think, Tabernacle. And we have another private investor who is going to be adding more student housing that's going to be up. I'm trying to think of which the road is, but anyway, more student housing is going to be added. So we've got private investors now trying to create housing for our Dixie State University students. But here's the thing. The thing about Dixie State is this. Small classes or smaller classes, great instructors. I mean, you've got people coming in from California, all over the place that are going to be teaching at Dixie, and they're there now. And it's one of the lowest priced universities in the Western United States. I mean, it's the best deal out there.
Yeah.
Great university.
Awesome points. And one of the things that you'll see, Matt, when you come to town again, and you might have noticed it, but pay close attention as you drive the boulevard and these places. St. George is trying to become a university town.
Yeah.
And they're making a very concerted effort to do so. So you'll see the Dixie State banners everywhere. They rebranded with the bison, with the whole new look, with the new brand. Because the deserts, what did we call ourselves? The Red Storm for a while?
Red Storm.
It was bad.
It's been a few things. Yeah.
But the community is saying, we want to be a university town. And when I was a kid, it was Dixie College at the time was a big deal. And then for 20 years, it kind of almost like it wasn't a thing. So I'm happy to see it happening.
Yeah, and just to note, even though I was in Texas for 14 years, I did go to Dixie College. I did.
The truth comes out.
Rebels, back when they were the Rebels.
I knew what I was doing. I moved back here. You bet. Yeah.
Smart girl.
So let's talk about some of the communities that you are excited about, that are hot, maybe some that have bounced back in a big way from 2008, because I know at times there was some of these kind of outlying speculative communities that looked almost like ghost towns. It was a little crazy. So let's flip through a couple of these communities, some of these properties, and you can just give us an update on some of these areas that are hot and how they've rebounded since 10 years ago.
Okay. I'll take it. So what we're looking at right here, this is actually Entrada. So Entrada is actually, there are multiple neighborhoods in Entrada, but when you're down here in St. George, we refer to the whole thing as Entrada. Has a beautiful clubhouse, gorgeous golf course. You've got views of the Palisades and Red Mountains. So we're talking about the beautiful red sandstone mountains, blue skies. It's actually a beautiful beautiful area. And so it has a very unique look. And we actually call it Entrada style, which is kind of that Adobe Southwestern Santa Fe look. What's cool though is they're starting to go a little more modern, and so it's just they're doing a lot of updates. Most homes in there, there are single, or there are people who live there full all year long, but there are a lot of second homes in there. And then Entrada has some very specific areas that are set aside just for short-term rental opportunities. So there's investment opportunity in Entrada, opportunity to have a second home if you just want to come and get away from the gray during those cool, freezing cold inversion months up in the Salt Lake area. And it's actually, you can play all year long.
And what kind of price points are in Entrada?
Price points start at 400s. I think you might see some at 300s, but usually around 400s, all the way up to $2.3-4 million. It just depends on the property. Yeah. What you're looking at right here, this is actually out in Kayenta, which is a really cool area that's been around quite a long time, over 20 years. And so, Kayenta has kind of an artsy feel to it. So the homes are very Frank Lloyd Wright. They sit very low. It's all about preserving views.
I had no idea that this place existed until a couple of years ago.
Did you go out there?
Yeah, and it is super cool. I mean, it's kind of this hippie,
it's hippie dippy.
I loved it.
Basically, the rich hippies move to Kayenta, and then the poor hippies move over to like Virgin, and that's just the way it is. But the thing, this place is really cool. There's a little culture for you, Matt. What's cool is you talked about preserving views, Karen. Like you go in to build in Kayenta, you have to have very specific lighting, very specific height on your home. It has to be completely within the natural landscape. It's cool.
So what are price points out there at this point?
So actually, there is actually a listing right now in Kayenta that popped up in the mid 300s. That never happens.
Wow.
That never happens. So if anybody knows of someone they've got a client who wants to invest, that's a great opportunity to pick up a home, do a little renovation to it, and be sitting on some equity. And so that's, but they usually go up again. We're talking like millions in there. So we have homes that sit up against the Red Mountain that are absolutely fantastic. They're gorgeous views all the way around. And you're going to be talking like, you know, I think 3 million it might kind of, I don't know, top out. Larkin, what do you think, Jeremy?
Yeah. In terms of a listing you see on the market, $2.5 to $3 million.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I guess the sky's the limit, but that's the range.
That's interesting though, because I didn't think you could find anything in there for under 650 or 700. So
you can. Well, like Karen's saying, it's probably a 90s build, right?
It's an original 2-bedroom, 2-bath, 2-car garage, right? But you're sitting on almost an acre lot, so it's beautiful.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right. Jeremy, this is one of yours. So this is Little Valley, and you can add stuff whenever you want. But
we just reduced this one. Anyone who's watching, send a buyer. Right? Isn't that real estate lingo? Please send a buyer.
Well, tell us where Little Valley is. Kind of explain that area and what's that community like.
Well, Karen, can I throw jump on this? There's the interesting history about Little Valley is that people who move here now, they go, oh, Little Valley, it's where all the big expensive homes are. When I was a kid, Little Valley was farmland, and my uncle had a farm down there. Laurette that works for us is probably watching right now in the other room. It was her father's farm. So when we were kids, Little Valley was a farm. And what it is it's the southeast corner of St. George. And I don't mean southeast like the airport, Matt. That's way out there. But I mean the southeast corner of St. George proper. And what's happened out there is it's a great study in human sociology. There aren't a lot of landmarks or amenities out there. People are moving out because their friends are moving out. And when their friends move out, that begets more friends moving out.
Yeah.
And so the population is blowing up ahead of the amenities in Little Valley right now.
Yeah.
That's 450, 460, that house.
Yeah, and you get a lot of square footage in Little Valley for the price. But the other great thing is land is less expensive in Little Valley. So part of the growth that we're seeing out there is because land was affordable. Ivans, land is more expensive, and so you're not going to get a big lot to put a big house on. Out here, everybody's, it's 5 or 6 bedrooms, it's 2 levels. You've got a 3-car garage or 4 for all your toys because you've got, sand dunes and you've got lakes to get to and you've got biking trails. And so everybody's got toys.
So people are willing to kind of move out a little bit further in order to get the nicer finishes, the bigger square footage in comparison to what they could get in other areas that have those amenities and maybe are more centralized currently. Yes.
And the city is really awesome. And this is what I love about St. George is they're really fast to take action. I love them. I love these guys. They're bringing in amenities and they're bringing in infrastructure as fast as they can. And they're focusing on Little Valley. They're going to have a brand new fire station out there. They've just put in really fabulous soccer fields. They've got ball fields out there. They've got, grocery stores are coming out there. So even though the people are coming and they were a little bit behind at one point, now they're catching up and they're catching up really fast.
So let's talk about one of my favorite areas, Sand Hollow, out near Hurricane. Give us an update on what's going on. Because at one point, that looked a little crazy.
Oh, Sand Hollow is a story, isn't it, Jeremy?
Yeah,
right?
It was Sand Hollow, essentially, Sand Hollow and the ledges. I don't know if you have a slide of the ledges, Matt.
I think I do here in a minute.
Okay, so but just a little quick history. Sand Hollow and the ledges both came on the market 2005 to 2007 range. And they were ahead of their time. Or if you want to put it another way, they were too late, right? And so these beautiful communities come up and they're like, oh, we're going to have the greatest golf course ever. And the funny thing is that Sand Hollow Resort Golf Course is actually 2-time #1 rated golf course in the state.
Yeah.
So they did that right. But here's this beautiful Sand Hollow Reservoir right here, which is super full this year, of course, with all the rain, all the snow. And they were ahead of their time, and it looked like a ghost town. And I think at one point there were 120 or 30 individually owned building lots in Sand Hollow for sale. And you went out there and thought, there's no way. I had a friend tell me this week that 2 years ago he couldn't give his lot away at Sand Hollow, Karen, for $65,000, and someone paid him $191 cash last week.
Wow, that's a number.
So,
wow, yeah.
And then is this ledges?
No,
this is still Sand Hollow.
That is Sand Hollow.
This is Sand Hollow. So I have a good friend out there, Walrus Development. These guys are building out there, and just like you said, the lots that were priced at 65 and 75 are going and gone. It's not happening anymore. So, but we do have people out there who are building, and what these guys they've done their research. They know they actually are keeping their pricing about 375, 380. So they're still trying to stay within a range where they're going to like draw in the right kind of buyers that are looking to either invest, have a second home, or even just live there and just have that kind of lifestyle year round. So, but the pricing out here in Sand Hollow it's like I said, like mid threes, and you can see them up in the mid sixes. I haven't seen much more, anything much higher than that lately.
We sold one, the only one, and it was very difficult. It was a $2.2 million parade home, and we sold it for 1.5. And it was like, we had to, rabbits came out of hats and stuff because, it was hard because the market's not there yet.
Yeah. So I have a lot of clients that are coming in from out of state. They love the views. I think it's a hidden secret and really an investment opportunity for potential buyers if they want to look into Sand Hollow Resort, because the views are absolutely spectacular. What's missing is accessibility, but it's coming. Again, City Hurricanes working with St. George, and they're trying to increase access to Sand Hollow Resort. But I'm telling you, you will not see views. You will not see anything prettier than that golf course.
And how many places are there in the world where you pull out of your driveway? This is Dixie Springs, of course, and Sand Hollow. You pull out of your garage, and most of the homes, Matt, in Dixie Springs are going in with an RV garage for the boat, right, for these big, tall wake boats. Yeah. You pull out of your garage in the morning, and you drive legitimately 3 minutes, and you pull into Sand Hollow State Park, and you can put your boat on the water or put your ATV onto these giant dunes, or you can do both. It's pretty unique.
It's awesome. I love the design look too. This little more modern desert look is really beautiful.
It's cool.
Isn't it cool? They're out in Nebraska. Okay, this is a good one. So then we've got our 55 up in communities. So we've got. I know that St. George was considered a retire or like a snowbird town, but that is changing a little bit. But we still have amazing communities like Sun River. So Sun River has a beautiful golf course. They have the clubhouse with a ballroom, a library. They've got so many clubs. I can't even name them all. But if an interest in bird watching, or you want to write poetry, they've got a club.
Matt writes poetry. I know.
I'm a huge bird watcher.
He does a lot of poetry and bird watching.
Well, and if you're not in the club, you can join about 5. There's a million. So it's actually the amenities out there. And the whole purpose of Sun River is to create an environment where people can have a walking lifestyle, where you can just get face-to-face interaction, either at the clubhouse or over in the fitness center or on the golf course or at the tennis courts. And the investment that's going to be coming, the city's got, there's a big project that's planned for I-15, which is right there. I think it's exit 2. A huge, lots of commercials.
Maybe a new city, a new town. Yeah. There's a hotel going up out there.
Yeah. So, and to be honest with you, I've sold quite a bit out in Sun River, and price point wise, you can get something around 200. That's going to be like a 2-bedroom, 2-bath, but everything runs around the mid 3s, honestly. And
price per square foot is very high.
It is.
Which, if you want to have a litmus test for whether the market will support something, the average price per square foot is astronomical, and they can't even keep the lots in stock.
Right. So if you've got buyers that are looking at Sun River, prep them. Help them understand that this is not a normal market in Sun River. Yeah.
You have to look at this That's a great point. You got to look at this very differently.
So what kind of price per square foot are we talking about?
Oh, yeah.
220s, 240s, 250s. We're talking a high end price point.
And for a home that legitimately is not amazing,
it's a little dated, but great location, a lot of amenities.
You're paying for the lifestyle. That's it.
Yeah.
Yep.
You really are. Now, this is a listing of mine. It has the most beautiful view in Sun River, and their last, I think, golf course lot went for $200,000. This house is priced at $370,000. Actually, we just lowered to $359,000, and it's a little bit dated, but with some paint, this home is fantastic. And look at the views.
Yeah,
you're looking
gorgeous.
Towards Pine Mountain. It's gorgeous.
Okay, so this is the Ledges, I believe, right?
Yes.
Oh my gosh! So, I please, can I? Because I have a classic.
Go.
The 2005 parade home in the Ledges, which started it all. And if people who have been around know this house, is on the MLS right now. It's actively listed if you guys want to look this thing up. It sold in 2005 for $5.2 million. Austin Powers, $1 million. You remember that? I'm sure you do. So 5.2 million buckaroos. It is on the market right now for 2.59.
Oh, ouch.
This screams what happened to that market,
Yeah.
right? And I still remember we went out there for the parade 05, and they had this huge tent set up, like a wedding tent, and the salespeople were in there, and they were selling the lots. I mean, they were just, holy cow, as fast as they could sell these lots. And the mistake that they made at the Ledges, this is my perspective, is they went out and they sold all the lots to individual builders.
Yeah.
You had 50 different builders buy all these lots. And there was a period where you had a row by the clubhouse, a row of homes, 15 homes, unfinished, sheeted. I don't mean unfinished like they got to stucco, sheeting, OSB sheeting. It was gray from the rain and the weather. So the Ledges is now robust, and it looks awesome. And you go up there, and it is an amazing community, and it's 5 to 7 degrees cooler than St. George. Look at that picture there.
Yeah.
But you could have that $5.2 million home today for 2.59, and it's pretty incredible. Big old Spanish hacienda with a lazy river in the backyard.
Yeah, very cool. You know, it's interesting. You know, a number of years ago, I got super excited about Sand Hollow. This one, the market was red hot. And, you know, that unit we looked at a few slides back, there were a number of those kind of units available, and they were selling for like $550.
Yeah.
And I was this close to buying one. Like, I just loved the property, loved the location. Ultimately chose not to. I'm glad I didn't. But it's interesting that, you know, even though we look at the median home price in St. George and Washington County, and we've mostly recaptured that, there's some of these little pockets where it got so crazy inflated during that 05-06 period that they are way off from what those crazy prices were. But they're much more reasonable. They're much more justifiable prices. You know, if you can buy that home in Sand Hollow for $350, $375 today versus it would have cost $550 back in the heyday when it was just crazy, right? And Jeremy, your example of the $5 million versus the $3 million is another example of that. It just seems like there was this exuberance that was just completely irrational in 05-06, and we don't see that irrationality, I think, today.
Nope.
No, Matt, in fact, I really appreciate that you talked about the fact that there's pockets of opportunity. I think that Sand Hollow Resort's one of those. Ledges, maybe. The people that really got hurt the most are the ones who bought the lots from the developer. I mean, and we see that not only in the Ledges and other areas, but we're seeing it in other neighborhoods too, where they just overpaid for their lots. And there is absolutely no mathematical way that they're going to get past that. They're just going to have to, like, you know,
every single building, correct. Every single building lot in that period went up to, like, you know, 150 to 250. It was just every lot, and that's what it was. And that
I want two of these right here.
This one right here?
Yeah.
You want two of these?
Well, we'd love to work up an offer.
Look at that property. Yeah. So where's this?
Amazing.
So this property is actually located in Entrada, and so it's called the Reserve of Entrada. It's actually it's 9,000 square feet. So I think I'm pretty safe to say this is one of the largest properties or largest homes offered right now in Entrada. But look at those views. You've got the Red Mountain, you've got the Palisades, you've got Snow Canyon directly past that blue chair. So this home it is absolutely your own personal private playground. I mean, it has everything you could possibly want. Sauna, you've got a huge, massive gym underneath the house. It's 2 levels, has a pool, has everything you could possibly want. It's beautiful. Actually, right now, our broker, Dave Weeks, this is a courtesy of Dave to let us put this on today. He's got that listed. I think it's at 2.4, I think 2. Oh, I don't want to misquote it. I've got to think about that number. I want to make sure I got it right. But yeah, well, and
that lava rock juxtaposed against the green and the red rock. Oh my God. That is just stunning.
Well, and that's what makes St. George so unique. So we have people who come in from all over the world to come do the Ironman triathlon. We've got the Huntsman World Games here, and they all say this is a place we've never seen in a landscape like this, and they love it. They come in here because it's beautiful.
It's dramatic is the only way. 2.645 million. I just pulled it up on the MLS.
Thank you.
Okay, so speaking of dramatic, here's a dramatically different property. But this gives us an idea of what we can get under 200, right, Karen?
Yeah, absolutely. And actually, this is listed by Jeremy's group, but this property I think is listed at 1.6, or sorry, not 1.6.
1.6 million. It's going to be awesome.
169. I mean, I want us to know that there are homes that are there. You can get a great property down here for under 200, and and it's cute. It's a condo. And it's cute as can be. Yeah. And so we still have great deals. But I'm telling you, if you've got buyers who are thinking about coming down here and just looking on their own, they're not going to find them. They're going to need to have a great agent who knows exactly where they are and when they're coming up on the market or before they get to hit the market, because they're gone in like 2 days.
Yeah, for sure. Especially in that price point, right? Like it's just a feeding frenzy, crazy under that 300 price point, it seems.
Yeah.
So let's end with this. We only got a few minutes left. I would love to just kind of get your parting thoughts relative to recommendations. I know a lot of buyers that come down there as second homeowners also consider renting their property. If someone's thinking about it from an investment standpoint, second home standpoint, what are some of the things that they should be asking themselves? What are some of the pros and cons? What advice would you just give someone quickly on a phone call if someone was calling down saying, hey, I'm thinking about doing this. Tell me what I should be thinking.
Karen, you go first.
Karen, let's start with you, and then we'll go with Jeremy.
Okay. Well, I think the first question I'd ask them is, how do you want to use it? Do you want to use it for your own personal use, or do you want to use it as an income investment property? Because we actually have homes out here now that you can do both. So they can be a single home, or you can divide it up in a way that you get 3 units out of it. And so our builders are starting to get really smart about how they're building. And so some of our investment opportunities down here, you can keep one space like just dedicated for yourself, and then rent out 2 units, which is the other part of the house. And so I want to know like how they're planning to use the property, what amenities they're looking for. Obviously most of our really great like short-term rental opportunities, they have to have great amenities. They got to have pools. They've got to have parks. They've got to have playgrounds. And then accessibility to some of the fun things like the parks and stuff. So, and then also as far as return on investment, how long do they want to own the property? Because this market shifts, and what's hot today, just like any other market, isn't going to be hot in 3 years. And so if we know how long they want to hold that property, that might dictate where we take them. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah. Jeremy, what are your thoughts? And do you have any kind of input or thoughts relative to, expected return or rental income on properties? Do you have a sense?
Well, so here's the thing. You can still run your 5 to 7% cap rate, out there on your rental properties. It absolutely exists. And I mean, the conversation for me is, there's a quote that floats around, but essentially we've all heard that, where disagreements happen in relationships is when expectations are unmet, right? And when people come to St. George or wherever else to purchase real estate, they have this expectation. And so you say, oh, this is totally overpriced, or I can't get the return I wanted. Well, it's in comparison to what? And so that's always a conversation that we're trying to have with our clients is, well, what is your expectation? Because I need to understand exactly what it is you're thinking.
Right.
And maybe the question comes up, you haven't asked it, but what's the future here? Man, if I had a crystal ball, I will say this. Gary Keller talked about it at the Keller Williams Family Reunion. You were there in February, where we almost see this new market trend. So you have the market goes up, and then it goes down, and then it goes up, and it goes down over time. It's almost like if this is the old market trend, there's a new one forming above it. And typically we've seen real estate go up 5 years and down 5 years, and up down 5 years and down 5 years. And now all of a sudden we're 8 years, that Leisha Langston presentation we talked about, we're 8 years into a growth cycle in Washington County. 8 years. It doesn't seem to be slowing down. I don't even know what that means. You know what I mean? And we only have 2,100 building permits last year instead of 3,800. So it's tough to predict what's going to happen in this community.
Yeah. So, I mean, certainly from what we've talked about today, I would have no qualms in saying long-term, it is such a good investment. I mean, there is such long-term longevity in that community, a huge runway out in front of growth. It's just a beautiful area. I think it's going to continue to attract a lot of people. You guys, thank you so much for your time today. If you would, we'll start with you, Karen. Share with people how they might be able to find you or get a hold of you if they'd like to reach out to you.
Absolutely. Well, so I would just, right now just call me, call me. My number is, Matt, is it posted? I think it's posted somewhere. So my phone number is 214-926-8313, or you can email me. I'm launching a new website. It should go active on Friday or on Monday. And so you can also reach me at living@stg.com, living-in-stg.com. Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks, Karen. Jeremy?
Cool. I'm glad to know she knows her own website.
Yeah, I know.
She held the whole thing, and then right when it was time to just share her own personal.
Oh my gosh! Look
at me.
That is awesome. You can call me. You can call me directly if you want. 435-862-8467. 862-8467. Visit us online. Soldinstgeorge.com is where we're driving a lot of traffic these days. Soldinstgeorge.com. Love to chat, or Facebook message me. I mean, that was where I was talking to the mayor this morning, was on Facebook Messenger. It's kind of the wave of the future. So
that's what I hear. Hey, you guys are just the ultimate pros. Thank you so much for spending an hour with me on Real Insights Live. If you have enjoyed today's content and the material, please give us a thumbs up, comments below. We'd appreciate that. Any recommendations or suggestions. We will be posting this and all of our previous events on our on our YouTube channel at kwutah.tv. And with that, peace, love, and productivity. Thank you guys. Have a great day.
Thank you. See you guys.